Second effort, things didn't go so well on the first one. So repeating my commentary on this one, the top right to bottom left, you got a graduated lighting that goes across it. The shadows, enhance the image as far as I'm concerned. And as a pure record shot, record by definition is supposed to allow you to replicate what you have taken a photograph of or recreated, and we have enough detail here to be able to do that. Love the coloration and the way that you brought out the grain in the wood. So strong image for me, 16 points. A favorite subject for all record photographers is, of course, stained glass windows, especially in churches. And this one is a great example of it. Great detail, looking into it, everything is sharp. Obviously, everything is in one plane, so you can focus on that and keep everything sharp, providing you stay far enough back and use a long enough lens, if you like, to keep everything in perspective. So you've done that really well. Also, the great difficulty of this sort of photography is to get the lighting right. You can't control it. You're relying on the ambient light outside the building to be flat and uniform enough to bring all the detail out and do it right. And you have done that. So I'm going to hold this one. Derelict house out on the moors. Interesting. I would have perhaps chosen to go in for a slightly tighter shot of this particular building when we're considering this as a record shot and we're in the record section. The building itself doesn't have any color in it. The sky is great and dramatic, so I would experiment with switching this to monochrome or even as sort of slightly infrared effect. Certainly monochrome, high contrast, high pass to create that impact, because you got a lovely tree out there on the left, our left of the building, and the building itself, so you could bring out an awful lot more detail in this, I feel. And is the building sharp enough? I don't feel so. Sorry. So I'm going to give this one 13. Um, got myself a bit confused, so if I've screwed up, then please get back to me. This excavation of presumably an archaeological find. We got the shadows of the bunting. It's taken at a time of day with very, very harsh lighting. I would have been tempted to come back at a different time and with different lighting and see if I could have brought more out of it. And then also with things like record shots, concentrate on perhaps the important one. It looks like we have some sort of stove kiln here, dead center. You could have concentrated on that one as your main feature and thereby gotten rid of some of the harsh shadows and things as well. So 14 points. The mine shaft, straight down, very glazed, nice presentation. Not sure about how the lighting worked here, but I'm not overly concerned about it. We have this line, upper third, no, upper quarter probably of the image. So a lot of that is in shadow. So I don't know why why that's not lit up and the rest of it is. However, the geometry of the image is very, very pleasing. I think it's, quite strong in that respect, and it definitely held my attention for quite some time with the arch. And there is enough detail in the top bit here to, see the whole structure and where we're going. Um, and of course, you got the light at the bottom here, light at the end of the tunnel, boom, boom, um, coming straight at you, dead center, holding your attention, and everything else circles around it. And like I said, a very, very geometric pattern. So I'm going to give this one 17 points. Ah, this is kind of stretching it a little bit in terms of record, because record is in its purest form is recording something that you can recreate, which is what I said before. But I think most clubs, including our own, and I wrote the rules for our club, so I'm saying record and documentary. So I'm going to read this as documentary and take it through. So we got a slate mine here. We're recording. You are recording, documenting the activity that is going on and the tearing and how you kind of bring all this stuff out. Composition here is wonderful. The way that you got your the lake, the pit lake, down at the bottom there, and you're building it up through, you have the sweeping little roads carved out in the cliff face, and you're going into the actual mine face itself there. I liked it. I love the colors. I think it's sort of quite strong. Um, Bottom left here is possibly a little bit dark, but not overly so. So I'm going to hold it. Fountain Abbey, massive place. So many things to take photographs of there. Like the lighting here. Wait. Like the way that you've caught this with the sodium lights hitting the ruins and creating those colors. Possibly exposure could have been controlled a little bit more because you got some highlights here that could have been controlled better. Time of day and the long exposure that you've chosen is great, and everything is sharp, and that is lends itself to be strong. Not much more to say about that one, I think. 16 points. Needlework, embroidery, nice panel, nice record, definitely a nice record. Could I recreate it? I can't sew to save my life anyhow, and back to a previous conversation, I can't even iron my sheets for the background. Anyhow, I do like it. I think the way that you've lit it is good. You have the hint of a shadow, so it suggests that the light is coming ever so slightly from the right, but it's subtle and well done, and the colors are nicely muted, and I do like it. You're recording somebody else's art, and whoever that is has presented it in a very, very structured way that you have recorded very, very accurately. So strong shot, 17. I couldn't help but read all the quotes here, and especially the Oscar Wilde up, the one up to the top right, and one of my favorite Oscar Wilde quotes is, "I drink to keep my mind and body separate." Okay, so a pub, I assume. Um, Very busy, very attempting to attract people into this place. Clearly, we're with a very, very strong literary bent to it. And I think you've captured it very, very well. You've focused in on the shape itself. I would have been tempted to lose the flower boxes off the top, and because we also then got this slanting roof line here, I would have straightened the image around that roof line. I don't know what that would have done to the writing. It suggests that you've got shorter than a 50mm lens. Um, Here, because it's kind of bent a little bit out of shape. So I would have gone for, pick a focal length of about 50mm. I don't know if you can get, I mean, I don't know the place. Can you get far enough back to, get all of that in with a longer focal length? I don't know. Even so, it amused me, kept me entertained. 15 points. Staircase. Where to go with this one? I don't know whether you can do any kind of trickery. I would have wanted to have, because this is a kind of half and half image in my view. I would have wanted to stick with the staircase and not have the fresco, assuming it's a fresco, um, above the line. So, stick with the staircase itself, or take a much, much wider view and get the fresco and the staircase in. As it is, we kind of cut off a little bit of the painting above the line. So you've kind of teased me with some of it, but not enough of it to make it an interesting image. And then we're not really concentrating on the staircase itself. And then, forgive me here, if we're talking record, I would have lost the person in the bottom right-hand corner, because that does not belong in a record shot. Sorry, harsh. 14. Like these sort of panels, down in where is it? St Pancras, King's Cross, St Pancras. There's an awful lot of these sort of bronze panels in the walls, and I've taken a lot of photos of those. I think this is a credible, ouch, um, effort at it. I would have wanted to brighten it up a bit and get some more detail into it, possibly light it from two sides. I don't know if you just relied on the ambient light, set up a scissor shot with a couple of flash guns. Yeah, try it out. Might not work. Even so, the focus, may this might be completely harsh. Is this a piece of art that has been eroded, and that's why it looks out of focus to me, or did you not focus it correctly? You be the judge. Or you take those remarks on board. To me, I'm left with an image that looks slightly uncomfortable and not quite in focus. So this one gets 14 and a half, just because you let me use half marks, right? Okay, this one, progression, fantastic. Loving the arches that go down the right hand side, both top and bottom, and then you have the ceiling itself that have the same sort of structure and geometry to it, and it takes you down. Way back when I was a mathematician, and This kind of reminds me of something that we used to call the Mandelbrot set, ever reducing, but never diminishing. So when you zoom in down to the bottom, you've still got more of the same, and it reproduces itself all over the time. Look it up if you're bored enough or interested enough. It's called the Mandelbrot set. Like it, I think it's stunning. I think the progression throughout the whole of this image that takes you all the way down to the bottom and focuses in a nicely framed piece of window down at the bottom here is great. So holding it, more more stained glass, this time taking an ever so slightly wider view of it and including the altar and the flowers. Um, because you've done that, you kind of lost a little bit of the impact to me, because first of all, you're losing the depth of field, so not everything here is in focus. You got a long enough exposure. Long enough to suggest that you use the tripod, so you could open your aperture even more. Wait, close down the aperture even more, and make bring more of the entire image into focus. I would have played with that one. As it is, it's not as strong as some of the other images, especially the other stained glass window that we looked at. So this one gets 15. Time of day here is the one enemy, I think, for you. Very, very harsh shadow on the background, and blown out highlights on the front of the statue itself. And between the two of them, I'm then flipping to actually wanting to look at the shadow more than the statue itself. And given that we're in the record category, I wanted you to show me the statue and show me the artwork, show me the art of the artist Damien here, um, and what he wanted me to be presented with and recorded as such. So don't know where. Oh wait, Chatsworth. So not that far away. Go back and do it again, but pick a different time of day. Um, Alternatively, um, it kind of looks like it's natural light coming through a window. So put a diffuser up, one of these circular little reflectors that you can also use as a diffuser to balance out the lighting a little bit more. Ideas to toss around with. As it is, too harsh lighting, I'm sorry. Other than that, you've kind of captured the artwork from a good angle, I feel. So I'm going to give this one 13. Yeah, taking photos of other people's cameras or even your own camera when it was old. I love the telescope. Not what's it called? Ah, anyhow, the way that you kind of extend extension tubes and things like that. So loving the way that you recorded the history of where we came from in terms of our photography. It's beautifully, beautifully captured. Very, very well controlled, and like a lot of this isn't monochrome, but because your subject is fairly short of color, it is almost a monochrome, but you have managed to separate your subject out from the background, and we can see the very, very, very well defined edges of your subject. My tiny little hint of criticism here is bottom here, it doesn't look like that's part of the apparatus, and I would have gotten rid of that one. But other than that, great. The way that you got the viewfinder and you show the technology, by definition, a great record shot. Holding it. Fob watch, greatly rendered, lots of detail in the chain, in the watch itself. Not sure what that ring is doing there. That kind of confused me a little bit, because I then tried to work out why is it there? What does it belong to? Does it add to the story? Does it not? I would have taken that out and focused on the watch itself, or build a broader story that I could engage with. As it is, the record isn't there, and you've kind of put the watch on a quirky angle. I'm not sure that has worked for me, but that's a very, very subjective judgment. Technically, well executed, sharp, well lit, and again on a dark background, well separated out. I'm going to give this one 15 marks. And we have a record of a portrait. Colors, I'm just taking your word for it that these are the colors of the portrait. Lots of purples, very diffused, very noisy, to be fair. But I'm assuming that that is the portrait itself, because the way that you've rendered the frame is good and strong. So and also well lit, no daft reflections or anything like that. Is it if there's glass in front of this canvas here, I might have been tempted to try and clean it up a little bit, because there's sort of dust specks in places around here. This is a reflection down here, and I don't know whether that's a dust speck or if it's part of the portrait. If it's part of the portrait, you're doing a pure record, which is fine, but it does look like there's a little bit of dust around. And you've got the time here to do anything you want, and I would have it's not straight. Yeah. Oops. So can you see that? The gap over here is a lot less than the gap over here. So straighten it, keep it honest, and give me a record of this piece of art. So I ended up giving this one 13 points. Righty. Excuse me. Here we go. Slate mine. Like it. Love the pure pictorial quality of this, the way that it kind of has an impact and layers through. For me, great. 18 points. And I'm then going to go to the camera. Well recorded, well worked actually. It's had a job to do over time by the looks of things. Great shot, 19 points, and third place. Wells Cathedral with all the arches that drifts out into the distance. Great shot, 19 and a half, and second place. Which leaves me with the stained glass window. Beautifully rendered, wonderfully flattened, and you've taken the patience, or we're lucky, perhaps both, to capture this at a moment when the lighting was absolutely beautiful and brought all the details out. 20 points winner.